Okay, so let's get to how do we do this. If I wanted to evaluate any triangle of my special angles here, those principal positions in the unit circle, and I didn't want to have to remember all of the positions around the unit circle, here's what I would remember. Say we're given an angle like 11 pi over 6. Now I might remember that pi over 6 corresponds to this, right? I would think I look at this angle right here, 11 pi over 6 has sort of a related angle of pi over 6. And if I remember what happened with my pi over 6 right triangle, why here's one right here. If I remember what happened with my pi over 6 right triangle, let me make one over here, then I remember that the ratio of the sides were, let's see, 2, 1, and radical 3. Here was the angle pi over 6 enclosed within that right triangle. And of course, because the hypotenuse was 1, I'm going to divide everything by 2 so that I no longer have 2 over 2. I have 1 as my hypotenuse. Okay, so now I know that those are the ratios of the sides. But what's more, where do we find 11 pi over 6? Well, 11 pi over 6 is located in the fourth quadrant, and we know this. I'm going to flip this guy over. We know this because when we put it over here, we have this angle of pi over 6 enclosed in this right triangle. And so when I'm looking at this coordinate point, opposite over hypotenuse is going to represent 1/2 over 1. Adjacent over hypotenuse is radical 3 over 2. Since we're in the fourth quadrant, it's positive radical 3 over 2 and negative 1/2. Okay. So if you remember, right, if this were in my first quadrant right over here, and I were to place that at quadrant 1, we'd have positive radical 3 over 2 and positive 1/2, then all we really have to remember here is that we're in the fourth quadrant. So now if I want to find my sine, cosine, tangent, that's actually not too bad. So if I told you, let's find the sine of 11 pi over 6, you would tell me, okay, this is in the fourth quadrant. It corresponds to a y coordinate down there, that fourth quadrant, so that's negative 1/2. As far as the cosine of 11 pi over 6 is concerned, well, it's in the fourth quadrant. It corresponds to an x-coordinate. That x-coordinate corresponds to positive radical 3 over 2. And so the tangent of 11 pi over 6 is going to be the ratio of those two things. So we're going to have negative 1/2 divided by negative root 3 over 2, and that becomes negative root 1 over root 3, or if we rewrite it correctly, negative root 3 over 3. And that's what we were looking for. All right, what could we say about 3 pi over 2? Well, 3 pi over 2 is way down here, 3 pi over 2. Now, the nice thing about 3 pi over 2 is that it has a coordinate of 0 and negative 1 this time. Now, that corresponds sort of to what we had going on up here at pi over 2. And if you remember what happened there, where we had coordinates of 0 and 1, that we were able to find a sine which was equal to the y value, right? So our y value right here of 3 pi over 2 corresponds to a y value of negative 1. The cosine of 3 pi over 2, well, that corresponds to the x-coordinate, and that's going to be 0 in this case. And so if we tried to find the tangent of 3 pi over 2, we might be a little bit left in the cold here because, well, that's undefined. There is no value. So we know y, well, of course, that means it's negative 1 divided by 0, right? Since we can't divide by 0 over the set of defined numbers, it's undefined.